Hey, folks, welcome to the Accessible Hunter podcast. I'm Greg Trainer along with my co host, Mike Hudson. We got a really special podcast going on today. Mike and I have been following a guy named Bill Bogdan out of Illinois for a while on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm going to have Bill introduce himself here in a minute because his resume and background is just amazing. But first, Mike, what's going on in South Carolina, brother?
I was doing good until we had Bill coming on. Now I needed to step my game up a little bit, man. There's a ton to get into, and I love advocacy and inclusion. I'm always looking for a new job to get into, but man, Bill's making me
Mhm.
look bad.
Man, he's
Yeah,
been doing it for years, and I think I read that Bill, you've been in a chair using a wheelchair for 50 years. Is that correct?
yeah, over 50 years. I mean, primarily, I've been disabled pretty much. I've been an incomplete paraplegic ever since I was 8 months old.
Wow.
So it's a long time. But I had a neuroblastoma of the spine, which is a cancerous tumor. I was probably born with it. It's probably grew inside the womb and so forth, but they didn't find it till I was 8 months of age. And then that was back in what, 1969, 1970. And then after the tumor was removed, unfortunately, when you're operating on a little kid, on a little baby, let's put it that way, they didn't have laser mapping and all the medical technology we had today. So it took a
Right.
skilled surgeon to go in there, cut the tumor out, and so forth. And hopefully, he didn't have too much coffee that morning and have a little shakes. No, but it left me an incomplete paraplegic, and I've primarily used the wheelchair ever since.
Gotcha. Well, man, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on. And if you don't mind, would you kind of introduce yourself, maybe a little bit about your background growing up, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got into the outdoors.
Yeah, sure. Well, again, my name is Bill Bogdan. I serve as our disability liaison for the Illinois Secretary of State's office, where I coordinate programs and services for persons with disabilities throughout the state of Illinois. That's my full-time job. But then I'm also involved with the United Spinal Association, the Illinois chapter, and I serve as the chapter president right now. And then I also serve on the board of directors of Dive Heart, which is a non-for-profit organization out of Downers Grove, Illinois, which promotes scuba diving for people with disabilities, our disabled veterans, children with disabilities, and so forth. And I'm a huge adaptive sports outdoor enthusiast. I'd rather be outdoors than anywhere else, and so forth. Just a little bit about my family. I've been married, my wife and I, 28 years. I've got three children. One is 22. My son is 17, and then I got a daughter that is 14. So wide range of ages and so forth. But my kids keep me busy. And then, if I still don't have enough time, we just purchased a dog. We just got a dog, so we became a dog family. So I'm working at training my dog Charlotte, who's half husky and half German Shepherd, to kind of help be my service dog when I'm out and about. And she loves the outdoors, probably just as much or if not more than I do.
That's one of those things the dog's actually training us, right? We go
Oh
through these,
yeah, yeah.
we think we're doing something. Dog's like, nah, I had him suckered the whole time. But Bill, man, that's a resume hard to keep up with. And I know, coming up, we got Roll on Capitol Hill with United Spinal, and me and Greg were just talking about that. And it's always a blessing to be able to get out. Do you get to get involved in that as well through United Spinal?
Oh, yes, they do. I mean, this year, our roll on Capitol Hill, which takes place next week, it's
Yep.
June 23rd. It's going to be virtual.
Yep.
The national organization does an in-person visit every other year, just for funding and cost-wise and logistics and so forth. So this year, it's going to be all virtual, so anyone could go ahead and join in if you're interested. Where obviously it gives a chance for members of the United Spinal to talk with their legislator, talk with the congressmen, the senators, members of Congress to promote and advocate for disability issues. And one of the big things that we're working on, it's our platform this year, will actually, if it passes, will really help people with disabilities and even our outdoor enthusiasts that get out there. But one of the things that we're advocating for is to have Medicare be revised a little bit. So when we go out in a nutshell and need a new wheelchair, whether it's manual or what have you, but it's going to allow Medicare to go ahead and pay, a maximum towards a wheelchair. And if the individual wants their wheelchair in carbon fiber or
Mm-hmm.
wants a titanium wheelchair, they can pay the difference out of pocket.
Yeah.
And obviously, when we're outdoors, the lighter the chair, the better. And titanium or carbon fiber is super strong, can take a lot of punishment, can take the beating. And I think it's going to be a game changer for people with disabilities because right now, basically, you're told it's either this chair or nothing.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
And this one, if it does pass, it did pass the House of Representatives and is now going to be heard in the Senate. But basically, it will give people with disabilities the option to go ahead and purchase a carbon fiber or a titanium chair and pay the difference out of pocket. And that's going to really, increase their independence if they're able to get these types of chairs.
Yes, sir. That's going to make a dramatic difference. And as you said, when you're in the outdoors, you need specialized equipment. And if they can get help and pay the difference, that's going to be huge for a lot of folks that are trying to get back outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. So, if you're interested, obviously go to the United Spinal Association's website. You can Google them or go to the website and participate in On a Roll on Capitol Hill. It is a great event. It gives you a chance to network with people all throughout the United States,
Yep.
people in your local community, and then it gives you a one-on-one to talk with your representatives and really, explain to them why this is much needed.
Yeah. I was looking over the itinerary for it earlier and going through. I told Greg we've got meetings from 10 a.m. till 2 or 2:30, and this is not my first time doing it, so it's
Oh, awesome.
always a blessing. But it's just the great time, and I'm glad you tagged that so that we can get more and more people involved. That way we can advocate for the people coming up beside us and behind us.
Yeah, Mike, you're exactly right. I mean, the more people we can get involved in these things, the better. I mean, not too long ago, United Spinal worked really, really hard to get standing frame chairs covered under Medicare,
Yes.
Medicaid. And that's a huge difference, not only for people with disabilities who need them inside the household, but even when you go out in the household. I mean,
Correct.
outside in nature and so forth, to have a standing frame chair, if you need it, I mean, that's another game changer.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you bring up a great point with that. I use it when we're going out and we're trying to cross traffic. That way you're seeing more. I joke around and say I got elevation and all that on there so I could talk down to my wife. Just trying to cut up, but it really does give independence. It shows a whole new longevity of life. I can get elevated and take care of more things in my own life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, talking to you guys, that's probably, if I could be king for a day, that would be one of the biggest things that I would change. I'm sick and tired of insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, turning around and dictating what types of wheelchairs you can have, what types of
100%.
equipment you can have.
Right.
I mean, every disability is different. No two disabilities are alike. What works for me may not work for you. You got to have options. You got to have the
Yeah.
ability to get the equipment that you need to live your life as independent as possible. I mean, the wheelchair that I'm in now pisses me off to no end because I mean, I had to pay out of pocket for it, but it was my choice.
Yeah.
Insurance wouldn't cover it, but 90% of the stuff on the chair, insurance covers, but they don't cover the frame. So their
Yep.
argument is, hey, we can't put equipment that we do cover on a frame we don't cover due to liability. It's ridiculous.
And and Bill,
Needs to change.
you had mentioned your daughter earlier, and I was kind of, like I said, creeping on your Facebook and trying to ask intelligent questions and have that out there. But she just graduated from the university in Alaska, and
Yeah.
when you went up, you had some damage to your chair. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my daughter, she's participated in me with adaptive sports ever since she could sit on my lap. And, the outdoor bug is just hit her. It's part of her DNA. So she wanted to go out to college in Alaska. And when she came to me and she says, Dad, she came to me and my wife and she says, Hey, I want to go out to college in Alaska. The first thing was like, hell no, there's no way in the world, I'm going to let my daughter
Right.
go 3,000 miles away to freaking Alaska. Do you hate me that much?
Uh,
But all kidding aside, I'm always promoting that people can do anything that they want to as long as they put their minds to it. And I couldn't sit there and preach that every single day. And then when my daughter comes to me with one of her dreams,
Right.
I said, nope, get another one. So in a nutshell, I said, all right, you're going to go to Alaska. I'm going to go with you. I want to check out the college, check out the university. And then on our flight up there, unfortunately, my wheelchair frame got cracked. when we landed in Anchorage, Alaska, and it was like 12:30 at night. The plane comes in. I hop in my wheelchair. I start wheeling down the jetway, and something ain't working right. The wheels are rubbing. The back wheel is rubbing up against the frame, and I thought it was just the way I got in it. And lo and
Right.
behold, I look at it, and it cracked my frame. And that was another thing we did with United Spinal. I testified, in front of Congress and so forth, or gave testimony, about the airlines breaking wheelchairs and how they do this. It's kind of it is like breaking our legs.
It
Yes,
And
is.
sir.
It is.
at first the airlines were like, "Oh, just take one of the airport chairs out till you get your fixed." And I'm like, "You can't do that. It doesn't work."
No. No, and they don't get it. And that's what, I'm just tired of fighting the ableism. We're already fighting a disability. We're fighting insurance. And now we got everybody that's able-bodied telling us what's the best piece of
Yeah.
equipment or whatnot. But to see some of these chairs being broke, it's almost like you have to put in work to snap a frame on a chair.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah. And
Yeah.
when we get there, if it's travel for pleasure or if it's travel for work or whatever. All of that's done. Now we're on the back burner trying to figure out how we're going to be mobile.
Exactly. And here I am in Alaska, my chair's broken. I had to turn around and pivot and figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
I filed a claim with the airport and with the airlines, but it took 48 days for me to get my chair fixed. And
Wow.
I had to make a quick fix to it. And they told me that if I got the frame welded, forget it, they
Yep.
wouldn't cover it. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I already reported it. I gave you pictures, I documented it. If my chair breaks all the way, what am I going to do? I mean, you're
Yeah.
up in
Yes, sir.
Alaska, it's pretty rugged. And from Anchorage, we went to Valdez, and that's even
Yeah.
more remote, where she's at and where she went to college. So, I had to do a lot of, as people with disabilities, you guys know this. We got to be resourceful. We got to
Right.
Mhm.
figure out. We got to be willing to pivot. As they say, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. When my chair broke, I didn't know what to do, and then
Yeah.
luckily when I got to the hotel the next morning, I get up and 2 blocks from the hotel I was staying at, true story, is Pablo's Fat Tire Bike Shop. So
Okay.
I'm
There you
like,
go.
wow, I can't, this is like a blessing. Now, two blocks. I said I could do that. So his shop opened up at 10 o'clock in the morning and I was there at 9:59 and said, "Hey, I need to speak to Pablo," and he's like, "Oh, well, he's not here. He's the owner." And I told him, I said, "Hey, look, I'm not here for a bike, but my wheelchair broke. Can
Yep.
I use your shop? I got to try to figure out how I can, put something on the frame to hold it together." And working with Pablo's Fat Tire Bike Shop in Anchorage, and then going back to my hotel and then saying, "Hey, can I talk to the maintenance guy, the head maintenance guy?"
Yeah.
And then, of course, the hotel said, "Is there a problem with your room, sir?" I said, "No, no, it's with my wheelchair." And he took me down to his shop. And then from that, we were working with him and we were able to make a temporary fix that can get me through the day to hold the frame together. We basically, in a nutshell, to be honest, we took a copper pipe, cut it lengthwise, and then
Yeah.
put it as a brace over the frame.
Yeah.
And then I pounded an air hose connector that would connect two air hoses together. I pounded that connector inside the hollow frame to give it strength, and then we used radiator clamps around the broken frame to make a bridge, and it held together. And
Hey.
I
God
figured
bless you.
if it broke, I said I got to go find a welder
Yep.
and get it welded. And then the guy from the maintenance guy, I'll never forget what he said to me. He goes, "It's Saturday morning. You're not going to find a welder in Anchorage maybe till Monday or Tuesday because it's in the middle of winter." And then he told me the best bet would be is go up and down the strip to the bars, and if I see a pickup truck with an acetylene tank in there, go buy the
Yeah.
guy's beer and they'll fix your chair in the parking lot. I
It's
said, "Good to
Alaska, man.
know."
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Those
all
Talk
help
guys are
one
ready.
another.
talk about being a MacGyver. Jeez, Bill, that's
Yeah.
really thinking outside the box and taking responsibility to get it fixed yourself because you definitely didn't get any assistance from the airline. And
Oh no.
this happened at 12:30 at night on a Friday night, and you're waking up trying to find a bike shop the next day to problem solve. And man, we definitely have
Yeah.
to take responsibility for our own mobility. And I'm glad that you were able to get that done and get back with your daughter and check out the college. Um, one of the
But
other things,
I
go
was
ahead,
going to
Mike.
say, it's completely asinine to have a broken leg and they tell you, "Hey, just sit on it and we'll get to you in 40 days."
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
hope the viewers and the listeners get to understand is we're not trying to be squeaky wheels just to be squeaky. It's just the system is so rigged against us on a lot of levels. All we're trying to do is get to living, and to say
exactly.
to say, hey, wait a month and a half and we'll get to you.
Yeah, and then Mike, the chair that I had too was my outdoor chair, and it was a full suspension chair,
Yeah,
perfect for Alaska, to go in the wilderness and go on trails and do whatever because it had suspension. So and their thing was just, oh, just take one of the airport chairs and you'll be good. And it's like, whoa, dude, but it is something. But
it is.
we advocate every day, and this is what your podcast is all about: getting people together with like minds and trying to make changes, needed changes.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Bill, you had mentioned dive heart, and I kind of piqued my interest because right before my spinal cord injury, I had gotten certified in scuba diving, but I never got to go out in open water. I've scubaed in pools since then and things, but for the folks that are curious about being out, I mean, we're starting summer. A lot of people
Yeah.
are gonna want to get out in the water and things. Could you talk a little bit about your experience with Dive Heart and some of the things you do?
Well, Diveheart is an awesome organization. I can't say enough about them. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary this year. So we got a
Wow.
gala coming up October the 3rd in Downers Grove, Illinois. But 25 years of making possibilities happen and getting people in the water and getting them scuba diving. I've been a certified scuba diver since 1991. And I've been involved with Diveheart primarily since probably 2008, 2009. I serve on their board of directors. And like I say, the one thing that I'm very passionate about, obviously, with scuba diving, it's probably one of the only places in the world that I can go to where I can leave my wheelchair behind.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I
Yeah.
once I dive in the water, I use web gloves to help me swim because I can't
Right.
kick my feet, I can't propel my feet. But DiveHeart works with the individuals, works with individuals with disabilities, works with scuba dive shops all across the world. They train scuba divers to become adaptive dive instructors, and then they train buddies to become adaptive dive buddies. So, like for me, when I go scuba diving, if I'm not diving with Dive Hard, or if I'm by myself with my wife or whatever, I need an extra person to come with me. So we need three
Hmm.
people to do a dive because I can't save my partner, my dive buddy.
Right.
So then we train what's adaptive dive buddies, and they get specialized training to help people with disabilities while they're in the water, and then you can get to the level of an adaptive dive instructor. But one of the best things I can tell you, I'm really happy to cross off my bucket list. If you've seen my post on at Billy B for Access on Instagram, was in August. I got an opportunity. Well, I fulfilled a lifelong dream when it comes to scuba diving. My
Yeah.
wife's a scuba diver. My daughter's a scuba diver. And then I got my son certified as a scuba diver and my daughter certified as a scuba diver. So with Diveheart, we went on a dive trip. Diveheart does 3 trips a year to Cozumel, Mexico. They
Yeah.
do May, August, and December. And I went on a scuba diving trip with the entire family. And to me, as a father, as a person with a disability, as a father, and as a scuba diver, I mean, I can't explain the euphoria that I felt to have an opportunity to dive with my wife, my children, my family, and my dive heart family. And
Yeah.
I did 11 dives, 11 different dives with my son, and a nine or 10 with my wife and my two daughters. It's just unbelievable experience. And the one thing that Diveheart does is we do Cozumel quite a bit because Cozumel is one of the best places to dive, but it's all drift diving. So for people with disabilities, you don't need to swim because the natural ocean current that's there pushes you along or pulls you along.
Yes.
So you hop right in the water, hop right in the ocean. And basically the boat doesn't even anchor or tie to a moray or anything. They go ahead and they follow your air bubbles as they come up. But you get down in there and you just let the ocean current move you along. And to be honest, I mean, like I say, it just the feeling that I get. I don't need my wheelchair. Everything's
Yeah.
accessible down there. You're naturally buoyant, all the stuff. And then you get to see all the great marine life, the sharks, the fish, the eels, the manta rays, it just, and the coral. It's what a thing of beauty.
Absolutely. And you talk about independence. Now you're getting pressure relief. You're doing all this stuff, right? You're buoyant. Now your back's not getting pressured. And that's one of the things. I've surfed all over the place, Bill, and I love
Awesome, Mike.
scuba and I lived in Hawaii and these tropical places. One of the things on my bucket list right now is scuba diving with the giant five, man. I wanna go see great whites and giant hammerheads, and I
Wow.
that's on there. I just haven't got there yet.
Yeah, when I was young, I did a shark dive in the Bahamas. I did the Stort Cove shark dive with the Caribbean reef sharks,
Yeah,
and there it's no cage. You're just swimming with the sharks.
right.
They accommodated my disability a little bit. They said for me, they didn't want me using my hands to swim because they said they didn't want me to spook the sharks. So they
Sure.
gave me my own dive master who went down with a harpoon gun, and he grabbed me by the back of my tank and pulled me along so I can go watch all that stuff.
Heck
And they
yeah.
said
Nice.
that's going to work. But what a great experience. And hey, Mike,
Yeah.
maybe one day I'll join you and we can go do
Yeah.
a nice scuba dive. And
Well,
Greg, we'll get
they
you in there.
yeah, man. So
Definitely.
they offered me a workaround through the PVA since we were veterans. They were going to take us to Atlanta and let us do the aquarium dive. And I
Ah,
joked around.
okay.
I mean, it's beautiful. They got whale sharks, they got sand tiger sharks, so that would have been cool, but I joked around and said, "Oh, those guys are captive, man. They're tame sharks. I want to get out here in the wild." But Bill, I would take you up on that in a heartbeat.
What
Yeah.
one of the big things you mentioned there, Bill, is time with your family and being
Yeah.
able to experience that with your wife and your children. And I think a lot of people with disabilities may feel like they don't have that opportunity to get back out, because of their spinal cord injury or other disability. And it's guys like you that are advocating, yes, you can. And as you said, everything is accessible, and the dive masters work with you to make it accessible. And that I think it's just so important that we let people know that it's possible to do these types of events, whether it's scuba or kayaking, sit skiing. You do it all. I was looking over your Instagram and just amazed at how many activities you got to go out and do, whether it's ice fishing with your son or sit skiing, and there's just no end to the possibilities.
Well, it's you guys know this just as well as I do. It's called living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shinedown's one of the bands I listen to, and
Oh
they do a
yeah.
song. It's like "Get Busy Living" or "Get Busy Dying," and
Hey.
we only got one life to live. Yeah,
Yep.
we unfortunately we may have been dealt a bad hand in dealing with some type of disability or some type of an impairment or whatever, but life doesn't stop for it.
Yeah.
And I encourage anyone with a disability to go out and try the things. You don't have to go and do all the extreme stuff in the world. I don't seek to do it. I enjoy doing it. I love to do it.
Yeah.
It's the part that I do. But anything to get out and reconnect with nature, get out there and do those things. I mean, I played sled hockey for 13 years. I
Yep.
loved sled hockey. I knew I was never going to be a Paralympian, and I'm still friends with Paralympians on the USA Team USA sled hockey team, and what a phenomenal team they are. It's 5 Olympics in a row. These
Yeah.
guys have won the gold medal. You want to talk about domination? That's 20 years of Olympics. We have won the gold medal. But I know that I was never going to be a Paralympian sled hockey
Sure.
player, due to age and due to my ability. But man, I spent 13 years, traveling the world, playing sled hockey, winning championships, winning tournaments with the team, and just the camaraderie to be around those guys, and they just take it to the next level. And where my point is, like I said, we don't all have to be Paralympians. We just have to get out there and enjoy life, which you
Yes,
which
Bill,
you
sir.
guys do greatly.
Bill, you said it, man. It's about living life. We just do it a little different. Don't be
Yeah,
afraid to get out there and talk to that dive master. Tell him what your needs are and see how they can help facilitate it. These guys
yeah.
and
And
girls
if
want to help. They just don't know how to help.
And if you need something, ask. And
Yeah.
don't be afraid if someone says no. And if
Sure.
Yep.
they do say no, then that door closes, open up another one, figure it
Yep.
Yes,
out,
sir.
pivot.
Figure it out.
One of you guys are from Pennsylvania area. Is that you
I
guys?
Yep.
I am Bill. Yes, Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And I see, they're doing some great things in Pennsylvania. And I
Hmm.
see that Governor Shapiro has worked, and he just did a press conference about making state parks and forest parks more accessible for all visitors. And
Yeah.
I
Yes,
was
sir.
reading up on that, and one of the big things that they're going to continue to do is they're going to continue investments in accessible trails, boat launches, hunting areas, wildlife viewing areas, and playgrounds.
Yeah.
And their big tagline that they've got is outdoors for everyone.
Yes,
Yep.
So,
sir.
I mean, it's really great that you got a commitment from your governor that to make the investments, the necessary investments into the park systems so
Hmm.
people can get out and enjoy recreation. It's great for their mental health. It's great for their life. It's great for their family and friends. I mean, everybody loves the outdoors just to get out there. And it is difficult when you finally go to a park and then it lacks accessibility or it lacks basic things and so forth. So it's awesome that
Yes, sir.
your governor's making the investment in that, and that's the thing. Continue to work with them, get on boards, get on committees. Even if they're not paid positions, volunteer your time. Especially now, you can do everything virtually.
Yeah.
Voice your opinion. I worked in Illinois. It's on my Instagram page as well. It should never have taken as long as it took. But one of the big things I love to do is kayak. And it took almost 9 years for me to convince my county to go ahead and put in an accessible kayak launch.
Right.
And it should never have taken that long. I mean, obviously, a lot of planning goes into it, funding goes into it. But now I'm very happy to say, they installed a fully accessible kayak launch in Lake Shamawood. They used the board safe docks to go out there. And when I went out there and used that docking system for the first time, I was totally blown away because I could kayak independently. And the one
Yes.
cool thing about it is it is a universal accessible kayak launch. So it's not disabled people use this launch and able-bodied people use this launch. This
Right.
is the launch. And now we've got two accessible kayak launches in the county that I live in. We're working on a third one, and then the next county over put in one last year. So it's starting to grow leaps and bounds with accessible kayak launches, and it's the whole thing about universal design. And
Bingo.
universal design is anyone can use it, and
Yes,
it's
Yeah.
sir.
universal, regardless if
Yep.
you. And many times people won't even realize that they have accessible features in them because it's
Yep.
Right.
universal. Everyone
Right.
can use them.
And
But it
And
that's what
makes
we're
it,
looking for, right? Inclusion. We just want to be involved.
yeah,
It's not no different, no better. Just here we go. We're living life.
and those
exactly.
launches make it so much easier for everyone. As
Yeah.
you said, Bill, not just people with disabilities, but everyone to be able to launch their kayak. And let's face it, we're all getting older. I mean, the
Yeah.
three of us are in our 50s, and we can't lift and carry like we could when we were younger or at
That's for
all.
sure.
So when we talk about accessibility and making things easier for the outdoors, it keeps people in the outdoors longer. Mom and dad, granddad, the whole family can get involved. We had Marcy on from the Pennsylvania Parks
There you go.
Foundation not too long ago, and they were putting in a couple of accessible kayak launches, and they're also, as you said, putting some track chairs into our state parks. And
Yep.
Pennsylvania is doing a lot better job in the last 5 or 6 years than we have in the past to get people of all abilities out into our parks and forest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the one thing, as you guys know, accessibility unfortunately is not done overnight. It takes
Hmm.
time. I mean, next month we're celebrating, the 36th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, but it,
Yep.
it is I can look back and I could say honestly, living my life with a disability for almost 57 years, this is some of the best time if you have a disability.
Yes.
There's so much that you can do. I mean, the sky's the limit, and that's the one thing that I always get motivated by through social media is I just get blown away by the people that I get to see post every day of them
Yep.
getting out and enjoying life and living life regardless of what their disabilities or their abilities are. I get inspired by that, and I'm not using it as they say the porn, disability
Yeah.
porn stuff. I truly
Right.
get inspired by the things that you guys do. You're getting people out there, you're getting them hunting, you're getting them out in the woods, you're finding like people that enjoy an activity and love to do stuff. I mean, this is, like I said, one of the best times to turn around and if you have a disability, to get out there and do things. And now we just got done with the Chicago Abilities Expo, and I just
Hmm.
get blown away with the leaps and bounds that we're making with adaptive equipment.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and even now with the new with all the e-assist equipment that's out there that can turn a manual wheelchair into a power chair
Oh
and
yeah.
give you more options to go to, and then the off-road vehicles that they've got now are the, I shouldn't call them vehicles, the off-road adaptive outdoor wheelchairs, if you want to say, that they have out there for people to use. It's totally unbelievable. Another great sport I got into a couple of years ago is adaptive mountain biking. I
Oh
got
yeah.
my own mountain bike. I love the mountain bike with my son, and that shit never existed when I was a kid. I mean,
That's
and
right.
so now it's like I get to be a kid all over again because,
Right.
growing up
Technology,
with
man.
it's something that,
I,
I
I
could go
seen a
on and on.
I seen a video of you in your mountain bike. I think that was through the Kelly Brush Foundation. Is that right, Bill? And
Yeah.
that mountain bike you have, wow! I mean, that thing goes everywhere.
Yeah, it truly does. I mean, we got a great opportunity. In Chicago, we're blessed. We have the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, and they have an excellent adaptive sports program. And that's where I played my sled hockey through. That's where I turned around and have done my mountain biking, my skiing, my rock climbing, and all of that through their programs. But we got an opportunity to go up to Vermont and do adaptive mountain biking with the Kelly Brush Foundation
Mhm.
and the Vermont Adaptive Sports Association, which is an unbelievable program as well. And got to do 5 days of mountain biking up there, up in Killington, Vermont, which just gorgeous. I mean,
Yes,
just
sir.
gorgeous on what they've got there. And with the mountain bikes now, we've got so much stuff that is out there. I use the Reactive Adaptations Nuke, but I mean, there's Bowhead makes a whole slew of
Yeah.
mountain bikes. There's
Yeah.
Lasher Sports makes mountain bikes. Madeline makes mountain bikes. There's so many options that are out there. And then unfortunately, with those, the bikes are very expensive or they're costly, which prohibits a lot of individuals from using them. But, programs like the Kelly Brush Foundation, Challenge Athletes
Yeah.
Foundation, High Fives Foundation, they all have equipment grant programs, Move United, that you can go ahead and apply for. And there's so many of them. And the one thing that's cool about Kelly Brush Foundation is on their website, they actually have a grant finder. So you can
Right.
try to look for different grants that you may be able to apply for. And I encourage people, if you're looking for those equipment, to go ahead and apply for grants.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get turned down, but you never know unless you apply,
There you go.
Yes, sir.
to go ahead and do it. But,
Bill,
it's great.
Bill, you wear all kind of hats, man. And
Yeah.
if you had an opportunity and you were trying to get somebody with a new injury out there, um, what would be the biggest piece of advice to a newer injured person to get involved not only with advocacy and parts of their own life, but just getting out and taking responsibility for self?
Well, the first thing that I would recommend is, and we're working really hard, obviously, with the United Spinal Association, like I talked
Sure.
about, getting the ability to have titanium and carbon fiber chairs, as an option for people with disabilities. I work with NCART, and I
Yeah.
just spoke at the Abilities International Conference from a consumer perspective about getting the right wheelchair. I think number
Mhm.
one, that is the most important thing. If you become, unfortunately, I mean, if you have a new injury or you become disabled, have a spinal cord injury or whatever, I think it's the number one thing is getting the wheelchair that works for you. That is essential. You want a wheelchair that works with you, works for you. You don't want a wheelchair that you have to make work. And unfortunately, in today's society and the way Medicare works, the way private insurance works, they stick you in a damn wheelchair that's too
Yep.
big, too heavy, too cumbersome. You already are going through a transition period having to deal with your disability. And
Yeah.
then if you get put in a clunker of a wheelchair, that is
Yep.
too damn heavy for you to move, too damn heavy for you to transfer in and out of. I mean, it makes life that much more difficult. So the first thing that I always try to advocate for is the individuals getting the wheelchair that works for them. That
Yep.
wheelchair is an extension of you guys all know this, but I mean,
Yeah.
it shouldn't, and then when you only get a wheelchair approximately every 5 years that you can go
Right.
ahead and reapply, it's 5 years you get stuck with a chair that doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
It just leads to depression. It leads to, isolation. It leads to all this stuff. people don't realize that when I go and I drive, you guys know this, but if I make 5 stops, that's taking my wheelchair in and out 10
Mm.
times. If you
Yes.
got a wheelchair that's too heavy for you or too heavy for your caregiver to lift. I remember being on a trip and I couldn't get a van, so we got a SUV. And my son actually looked at me. We're at the Grand Canyon, and he goes to me, he goes, "Dad, do you have to get out at this site? I'm tired of taking your wheelchair out."
Right,
And I
right.
said, "Jack, you're taking my chair out. It's not
Yeah.
staying in." And I mean, and all kidding aside, when you get a big clunker of a chair, it's so
Yep.
cumbersome,
Yeah.
and it makes your disability that much harder. And it's important to continue to work with what you have. You guys know this. You got to stay strong. You got to keep your strength up. I know we can talk about it now as old fat guys, but it's like every pound we gain is a pound we got to move,
Yes, sir.
and it goes on and on.
You're speaking my language, man.
Bill, you're just an amazing person to talk to. We're so glad to have you on. And the trips that you've been on, what are some of your favorite activities? I mean, you've been to Alaska, you've been to Mexico, you've been to the Grand Canyon. What's like the best trip that you and your family have gone on together that made the most impact as a family unit?
Well, I would say honestly, getting involved with adaptive sports organizations is huge. That's another thing I definitely recommend individuals to go ahead and do. I think it's an underutilized resource that's out there. All across the country, we have adaptive sports organizations. And one of the things that I do is like if I'm doing a trip or if I'm going to a location or going to a different city or different town or a different state, I'll Google what adaptive sports organizations serve that area. And
Right.
then what I'll do is I'll go onto their website and I'll see what programs they're doing at the time I'm visiting. I'll go and give them a call. I will go and talk with them and I will see, hey, can I participate in any of your programs? 99.9% of the time, they're always looking for people to participate from. And then when you come
Yep.
from another state, they want to show you what you got. So when I
Yeah.
travel to Colorado, there's so many different sports organizations. When I travel to Utah, there's a National Ability Center. I go to Colorado, I use the Adaptive Sports Center in Crested Butte. I'd love to go to Oregon and use, Oregon adaptive sports programs and so forth. So that's one of the big things that I do is like sometimes, like I say, you can partner with them and they have the adaptive equipment and they're more than
Mhm.
willing to allow your family to go in. We did a trip to Arizona and I hooked up with Ability 360 and got to do their Wheels on Wheels fishing program. And I went
Okay.
out there. That was the only program they had going on the time we were there. But it was cool. I got to go fishing with the family and create memories. I could probably say one trip that was super impactful for me was when my last daughter Madeline, she wasn't born. Well, she was born, but she didn't go on the trip. But we did a trip with Wilderness Inquiry, and they're a non-for-profit out of Minnesota. And I found them online, googling stuff, and they do outdoor recreation for people with disabilities and outdoor trips. And we did a kayak canoe trip to the Apostle Islands, which is up in Wisconsin, and they have a fully accessible campground. So you tent out, you're with nature. They have the raised tent beds, so you can easily transfer into the tent with your wheelchair and so forth. But they do all the accommodations for people with disabilities. And my daughter was 10 years old at the time, and I think my son was 4, going on 5. And I took them kayaking into the sea caves in the Apostle Islands. And the sea caves are caves that were cut by the glaciers up in Lake Superior.
Right.
And that's the thing I think that gave my daughter the outdoor bug. We got to go kayaking in a sea kayak in Lake Superior, 3-person kayak. We had a guide in the back because it has a rudder so you can
Yeah.
steer the kayak. I can't do it. My feet don't work. So I had the guide in the back to steer us. I was in the middle for power to oar, and then my daughter was in the front. And one of the things we had to do, we had to pass a dump test. And what you had to do is you had to flip the kayak and you had to
Right.
demonstrate that you can get out, because if you flip out in Lake Superior, that can be a big problem. So
Yeah.
we flipped out in the bay in the controlled environment. And my daughter was so nervous about that. And I said, on the count of 3, we're going to go ahead and flip. So I go 1, 2, and I flipped it on 2. And I basically launched her out of the kayak, being a big guy like I am. And from then on, she was hooked, and she is my kayaking partner for life. Ever since then. And I mean, and that's what it says. Life doesn't stop for a disability. And when you have kids, it even brought it a new perspective. I've always been independent, but when you go out and you do stuff and you have children, you have families and friends, now it takes it to another level. I get,
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to do stuff with them and so forth, and show them that life doesn't stop for a disability. And
Bill, you bring things around full circle, man. And I've got a question that brings us back to
sure.
kind of the beginning of the conversation. You got hurt at such an early age. And, we're talking about technology and all the way things have changed. What was it like? What was a rehab like back then? Of course, you were an infant. Uh, and so how did your family go about doing that? I'm just curious because
Sure.
of how much time has changed.
Well, I was very fortunate, and my family was very fortunate. That I turned around and went to Shriners Hospital in Chicago,
There you go.
and I was a patient at Shriners Hospital from the age of 3 all the way up to 22, 23, and really benefited from the excellent medical care that I got and the care that I got from Shriners Hospital. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for my life at Shriners. Where I see things change quite a bit was that, when you talk about it, I'll date myself, but being 57, the Americans with Disabilities Act didn't exist. It didn't
Right.
Right.
pass till 1990. So anything that wasn't accessible back then, I'll be honest, I was the problem. I was the one that had to adapt to society. If there was no ramps, no accessible entrance, stairs, only thing, that was my fault. It wasn't, the business's fault or society's fault because there was
Right.
no accessibility laws. Accessibility, if there was a ramp, I mean, that was because I had a family member who may have had a disability and they put one in, or what have
Right.
you,
Yep.
until the laws cut up. When I went to grade school, my grade school had no elevator, had no way for me to get down to the cafeteria because it only had stairs. So there was no portable lifts or platform lifts. There was no elevator, no nothing. And my mom was probably my first advocate because she said, "Hey, he's been in the school system since he's been since the
Right.
third grade. He's now going into junior high. You guys had 5 years to plan for this. It's not my fault you didn't put an elevator in. You got to
Yeah.
do it."
Yes.
And finally, you fast forward. So back when I was little, I would say honestly, if things weren't accessible, my parents had a system. My dad carried me, my mom carried the chair, and that was it. Or we didn't go, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and now you fast forward where we're so grateful in the United States that we have the Americans with Disabilities Act. Things are more and more accessible. Obviously, we got a long way to go. It should never have taken as long as it has, but you see a society is really adapting to people with disabilities and all of that good stuff, and all the opportunities that we have are endless. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I think, July gives us the opportunity to reflect how far we've come and how far we got yet to go.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we got a new generation of kids with disabilities that are growing up where they have the great use of accessibility features, universal design, and the ramps. They kind of don't realize what it was like back in the
Yep.
Stone Age. No.
Right. Right.
But when we know better, we do better, Bill.
Yeah.
And assistive technology has come such a long way. We have so much technology in our phones that everyone can use. It's no longer specialized just
Yeah.
for people with disabilities. So it's cheaper, it works every time, and it enables and empowers us to stay independently and still control our environment. What used to cost $20,000 for a computer system for a person with a disability, we have it in our phones and can control our environment through that. It's only going to get better. I mean, I'm excited to see what the future brings for people with disabilities in the medical community and the things that we're going to be doing in the next 20 years.
Yeah, it's definitely going leaps and bounds. It makes your head spin to even stay on top of it. And that's why it's like it was awesome to go to the Abilities Expo in Chicago. I know that they hold Ability Expos all throughout the country. I encourage people to go out to those shows, and look at
Mm-hmm.
different things that are going there. And we all learn from each other. I networked with a lot
Yeah.
of people, met a lot of friends, met new people that I did, and what have you. And I would honestly say too, one of the things having my disability at a young age, growing up with my disability, I I'll say this 100%, try to say it 100% the correct way, but it's like I didn't have that sense of loss because I never knew
Right.
what it was
Hmm.
like to walk.
Right.
I've been disabled that pretty much ever since I was a baby. I've never experienced that stuff. And where you see people making leaps and bounds in the disability rights movement and in the disability area are people that got their disability later in life due to an
Yeah.
accident, injury, or age, where they're like, hey, I used to do all this stuff. I'm not taking this anymore. This is
Right.
bullshit. I'm going to fight for these rights, or I'm going to go out and create different things. The gentleman, Jake O'Connor that did the nuke on my bike from reactive adaptations, or Christian that does bowhead. These guys had injuries. They all love to go out in nature, and now they're back in a wheelchair or they're in a chair, and they're so
Yeah.
disappointed. And what do? They got created equipment that now allows everybody to go out there
Yep.
and enjoy. And that's where I see, things have grown leaps and bounds with that regard, and it's just awesome. I agree with you, Greg and Mike. Can't wait to see where things are going to go.
Man, it's an awesome time to live. You bring up a ton. We got to look back at all those folks that have paved the way for us. You got
Hmm.
Judy Heumann and Ed Roberts, and that's how, the disability rights movement
Yeah.
started in the 60s, and these guys doing the Capitol crawl in. And here we are now. We can do, the Zoom meetings through United Spinal, and it's all about raising awareness and continuing to push forward. We're done. We've done great. But we got a long way to go. We got to get some airlines that get on board with domestic restrooms and just being able to continue to push forward. Bill, we wouldn't be able to do it without guys like you, man. And to see all the stuff you're doing and all that you continue to do, I'm excited to see what your next adventure is.
Yeah, it keeps growing, keeps growing. I'm headed back to your neck of the woods in a couple of weeks. I'm headed to Hawaii, going to
Heck
Kona
yes.
to do some R&R and what have you. And that brings another point. We're at the resort I was staying at. It's a golf course, and I called them up and I said, "Hey, I want an adaptive golf cart because I want to go golfing with my kid." And
Yeah.
they said, "Sir, we don't have one." And I said, "Well, you better look at getting one." And then they called me back and then they said, "There's not one on the island." And I says, "Whoa, that's a problem." I mean, so I go, "You definitely, got to work with it." And then I follow in Trevor Kennison, and he's got into adaptive golfing and using the standing frame golf
Yeah.
trainer,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and he's the great, skier and so forth. But he's just great all around dude. I've never met him, but he's another guy that he's my Instagram friends, just like you guys are,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I just love the stuff that he's doing, or Aaron Fotheringham wheels. And then your guy in Pennsylvania, Zach Wolf, with
Yeah.
Adaptive
Yep.
Outdoors, or the Ryan Shazier Foundation now that has the track chairs for people to go ahead and use. I mean,
Yep.
it's you can make your head spin,
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
I'll give one final plug too. If you're ever out in Minnesota, you got to check out the North of North Resort, which is up in Ely, Minnesota. Sean Leary and Jill Leary, they have three fully accessible cabins that you can go ahead and rent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sean got a spinal cord injury when he was 18, and he again was very upset. He's got two daughters, and he was sick and tired of not being able to go outdoors and do all the activities that he can do.
Right.
So him and his wife actually put their money where their mouth was and make a huge difference. And last year or 2 years ago, they opened North of North Resort, and like I said, they have three fully accessible cabins, which are top notch, state of the art, Hilton esque, or Wurstoff Astoria, whatever you want to call it. Really, they didn't spare any expense building them. He's got a 400-foot plus pier that goes out onto Birch Lake, which
Wow.
ends at an accessible kayak launch and an accessible pontoon boat, so you can go fishing. And probably the one thing that I really loved about him is he's got even accessible saunas. And I've
Wow.
never been in a sauna my entire life per se. I can wheel right in there with the wheelchair, sit in the sauna, and listen to the coyotes howl at night and
Wow.
watch the stars twinkle over Birch Lake. But he's really changing things and making things easier for people with disabilities to go out and do and their families. And I know there's probably so many other resources that we're
Oh
not
yeah.
even aware of.
Well, Bill, the hour goes by so fast on these podcasts, but you've given us so much to think about and would love to have you back on again if you're willing to come back and talk with us because heck, we could take an hour on each one of your activities. You're
Oh,
just
sure.
you're a wealth of information and knowledge about networking throughout the country and organizations and grants and things. And I'll give you and Mike the last words, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your experiences with us.
Yeah. Thank you for all you guys do. And then, I'm doing I'm doing a deer hunt in October. I'm going with a crossbow, going deer hunting with a program in Illinois called SOAR, Swift Outdoor Accessible Recreation. And they're
Cool.
sponsoring a deer hunt for people with disabilities. So as soon as deer season opens up in October, I'll be going out there. So I'll definitely come back,
Yeah.
and as you guys said in other podcasts, that it's not about going out and getting a deer. It's about the experience, going out there with your
100%.
friends and family, and it's not about the harvest. It's about getting out.
Yes,
Man,
sir.
dude, I'm with Greg, man. We would love to have you back on, Bill. I'm excited for all that you're doing, all that you're going to continue to do, and hopefully you get a harvest. If not, it's going to be a great time at camp. Um, but yeah, we love to have you back on, and we're excited to see all the new things that are coming. Technology's come a long way. You've given us a lot of tags. We'll definitely reach out, and if you'll send any of those over for those establishments and whatnot, so that we can link them for more and more
Sure.
people to be able to get in touch. But as always, man, this time goes by. Know you're a busy man, but I wanted to say thank you again for all that you do and for coming on and sharing.
No, no problem, Mike and Greg. I really appreciate it. Mike, I don't know if you know Dustin Berg out of New Mexico, but he's a United Spinal Association member as well, and he's with the New Mexico chapter. But he runs a non-for-profit called Go Unlimited, and he's really big in hunting. So he could
Okay.
be one of your guests to go ahead and have on too, as well.
Yeah.
But he's hunting and fishing and all that good stuff. But you guys are awesome. I'm definitely going to follow the Accessible Hunter podcast and look forward to all the future guests you're going to have. I'm always a DM away to anybody. So you guys take care. Enjoy
Hey,
Pipe
you too.
Sunday. All
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Bill.
right. Thank you.
Hey, hang on one second here, but we'll,
Yeah.
we'll end it. We'll end it there. But Bill, man, this was phenomenal. Thank you
Absolutely.
for doing this, man. This was a lot of fun this morning. And if you know anybody else that would like to come on the podcast, you know, share our information with them because we'd love to share their stories and get the word out for people.
Yeah, if you guys, I think that these podcasts are awesome. The one podcast too that I listen to a lot is Unexpected Journey. I don't know if you
Okay,
ever heard that one,
I
but
haven't
if you
yet.
guys haven't, you could find it on all the locations. But you
Right.
can hook up with him and see if you can get Tim on your podcast or what have you. But it's
Yeah.
called Unexpected Journey, and he basically has a lot of individuals that acquire a spinal cord injury and then what they're doing next. I just did a podcast for T8 Outdoorsman
Yeah.
not too long ago. He seemed like a really cool guy to do. Eric Thompson, he's out in your Virginia area, and he's a big whitewater rafter, and he created a system that goes on a raft that prevents it from tipping over. So even
Oh,
if it tips over, it rights itself.
Okay.
So people with
Almost
disabilities can go and do
almost
something.
like
He's
a
out in Virginia.
gimbal, putting a
yeah.
Oh
gimbal on
yeah,
a boat. That's pretty
yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah. You
Well,
can you can find him, but he's a United Spinal member as well, Mike.
cool. Well,
Yeah,
Bill, good luck on your hunt in October. I'm going to try to get this edited and up next week. We
sure.
generally put them up on Wednesdays, and if you have any links or if you have any um, photos that you'd like to include for the YouTube cover photo, we can do
I
that.
like the one you used. That was me shooting there in
I, I, was-
Alaska. My
I was just shooting in Alaska at the rifle range. Yeah, I
Yeah, my
went
daughter goes, we're going shooting, Dad. I said, let's go. I
that,
said, all right.
that's awesome, and we'll get all this taken care of and out to you. But man, we appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, you can feel free to if there's any other pictures you want to take off my Instagram to use or whatever you can. If
Okay.
you wanted certain ones, I mean, the adaptive kayaking at Lake Shamawood is awesome. We do the no limits fishing in Chicago. That's awesome to go ahead and have in. They got you guys can look into it. They got a grant through the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation to help buy the boat. And I think they got like $35,000 or 25,000, and then they raised the rest. So if you
Wow.
guys
Yeah.
are looking for certain things, and then I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys are familiar. I saw the National Rifle Association has an adaptive hunting database. So I don't know if you ever access that to use it
Yeah.
or have ever reached out to them to continue to, hey, you guys need to revamp it.
Yeah.
You know, I think, when it comes to hunting, as you guys said, uh, everyone thinks people with disabilities can't do anything. And hunting is one of
Right.
those things, and
Yep.
you guys are changing the world one
Well,
podcast at a
that's
time.
well, that's what we're trying to do, Bill, and it's just about highlighting people that are getting out. I try
Yep.
to tell people all the time, we're not just rednecks, and it's not just about hunting. We're just trying to share the outdoors.
Yeah.
Exactly. You had mentioned that this morning, and I know you guys are busy. I'll let you go, but I got a phone call from a Pennsylvania state game warden this morning,
Yeah.
and in October he's doing a hunting weekend for kids with cancer, and he's got six kids that are currently undergoing treatment that are going to be able to go out and bow hunt. And he wants me to come and speak to them, and he was talking about some of the preparations that need to take place, and I said, his name's Thomas Henry. I said, Tom, you're already successful getting those kids out. I said, if they harvest an animal, that's going to be a bonus. But the fellowship with the community, with other kids, getting out that weekend, being there with their family, that's already a win. And
Right.
it's people with disabilities. We understand that, but sometimes the able-bodied community doesn't understand how
Yeah.
important that is to just be part of the group, just to be able to get out. So uh, just keep doing what you guys are doing and keep advocating, I guess.
And you guys are spot on and 1,000% correct. I got so emotional with the Abilities Expo. Did the Abilities Expo this weekend, and on Saturday, a mom and a baby, a little girl, and her dad and the grandparents all came up to our booth, and here their daughter has the same disability that I have. She had neuroblastoma, and they caught it when she was only 3 weeks old, and
Wow.
she's wearing leg braces now in 4. And I had the biggest smile on my face, and I told the mom, I said, everything's going to be okay. I said, I'm
Yep.
Right.
57. I live a full productive life. There's no reason why your daughter can't,
Yeah.
Can't.
live and prove, and
Yeah.
so forth. But it's just like the people we meet every day. We change lives a little bit at a time, and sometimes we don't even realize it. So you
There
guys
you go.
continue doing what you do. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your passion, and I'll be thinking about you on Father's Day when I'm having my cigar out in the backyard and
There
cheering
you
my
go.
whiskey. I'll say this is to Mike and Greg. So
Hey, man,
Hey, right back at you, buddy. Enjoy your whiskey, and
we appreciate that.
both you guys have a good Father's Day, and we'll talk with you soon. Then.